we're going to focus on the challenges and the health of the repossession agency community. You know, at last year's event, I sort of raised a red flag or warning flag that we were starting to see deterioration in the marketplace. The insurance market was, for repossession coverages, was really getting tight. Margins were getting very thin. Fees were getting cut. Costs were going up. We're seeing a lot of agencies go out of business, and it seemed like there were quite a few others that were just hanging on. And here we are a year later, and I have to say that things don't seem to have gotten much better. We're still seeing some of those same trends. And I said last year, and I'll say it again this year, that if we don't find a way to keep the agent community healthy, we're going to pay a big price for this in the future. There won't be enough capacity in the industry to handle the volume, especially if there's a downturn. Competition in some of the key markets will largely be eliminated, and what will be left are some mega agencies that will have all the business that they can handle, and then some, and they're going to charge whatever they want to charge. And so it's really important that we keep the agency network healthy and not let things get to that point. And I think that if we do, as I said, we're all going to pay a price for it, but the subprime lenders, the ones that have lower collateral value and are more sensitive to pricing issues, are going to feel the brunt of it. So, big deal. It really is a big deal from our perspective. So to talk about those challenges today, we've got a great panel. Les McCook, who is the president of the American Recovery Association. The ARA is, I think, it's the largest professional repossession agent association in the world, probably. Yeah. About 300 members, 500 or so locations. Les deals with agencies all over the country, so he sees the issues firsthand. Also, I have to point out that Les is definitely the best dressed guy in the repo industry. He's literally an icon, a fashion icon to repossession agents. We've got Bryanna Cox here. Bryanna is the principal in Paradigm Recovery, which is a big agency in the Houston, Texas market. Houston is a tough marketplace to operate in, a lot of competition. If you can operate successfully there, you run a tight ship, and Paradigm's one of the best agents in that area. Mike Pletz. Mike is also with IRS, the same agency that Andy Sinclair was with this morning. In addition to being an agency that's been on the forefront of technology, IRS has also been sort of a leader in helping other repossession agencies understand how to measure profitability in their business, how to run their business better. So I thought Mike would be okay, so I'm going to move on to have a little bit of a panel discussion now. First question I'll throw to Bree and to Mike. What would you say is the single biggest challenge that you have today, aside from not being paid enough, that you think that lenders and forwarders really don't fully understand?
So one of the biggest things that I don't think they understand is, and it was brought up very well with Les, is our insurance is astronomical, almost disgusting. And now we're down to 2, possibly 3 companies, depending on where you are. And it's not getting any better, So again, we need to keep this agent network healthy, and that's our biggest challenge right now. Our biggest challenge right now is being able to insure our companies at a reasonable cost.
So that aside, I think it's information too. We're often assigned orders that we're given at a lower rate on the pretense that it's pre-skipped. And it's not actually accurate because we pre-skip all of our orders. So we're getting like between 150 to 250 orders a day that we're processing, and we're pre-skipping these orders. It's very time consuming. And more often than not, we're coming up with new or better information. So we're not getting accurate and current information. We're getting outdated and inaccurate information, addresses that are not, put in correctly. And it's very difficult out in the field for our guys with this inaccurate information. So we're pre-skipping this and before we accept these orders, and to make sure that they have the best information possible. And it's extremely time consuming. And I noticed when Mike had asked you guys if you had a skip department, not very many people raised their hand. And that's pretty concerning for us because how are you getting your information? And, we have to improve it every single order that we get. So like I said, between 150, 250 orders for my agency every single day, and I'm sure there's agencies that are, quite larger than me that are receiving 500, 600. So imagine how much time it takes if that's 5 to 15 minutes just to pre-skip an order and verify that information before we accept it. That is critical to us in the field because, just in Houston, for example, inside the 99, we're running virtually 3,000 square miles without mileage. 3,000 square, miles. And so that's time consuming in the field. It's between 10 to 15 minutes to get to each account. And it's hard to keep up with when we're not receiving that critical, accurate, and current information for these accounts.
How about the issue that Les alluded to with regard to, every lender has their own variation of everything. Everything from condition report to how personal property is handled, the form that has to be signed off. So I asked Bree to put together, or to bring the book, or the instructions that she and her agency have to handle or adhere to. And this is only just got the basic guidelines. It actually is much more extensive. But when an agency has to follow 2 dozen different sets of rules around multiple issues, you can imagine the impact that it has on cost, but also the likelihood of errors being made. So how big of an issue is that for the agencies these days?
Well, it's huge because we have different expectations for literally every single client we service. And it's funny because even the forwarders that we service will have different expectations for the direct clients that they take on orders for. So I made the book and I didn't realize what a huge undertaking it was. And I gave my office girls each a task to help me create this book. And I thought that we could finish it in 2.5 weeks. And I put in fee schedules and which platform each individual client is using and their key schedules, their requirements for personal property, their requirements for redemption. And we didn't realize just in my office, I have 5 girls that, aside from myself, that were working on this in our time when we're not working on our other tasks. And honestly, we got through the fee schedules and stuff before we even managed to get to the special requirements. It's a huge undertaking to remember, and we can put these things in the platforms. There's a space in RDN where we can, store your fee schedules and stuff, but they're constantly shifting. They're constantly changing. So, and like they were talking about with training, as we grow and we bring in new people in the office, it's kind of cool to have this little cheat sheet for the girls to really reference, because if a client calls and, I can't get to the phone or whatever, and they haven't actually quoted mileage before, they can go through the book and kind of see what that client does for mileage. And it's different across the board for every single client. So it's hard to keep up with, and not that I'm complaining, we love having you guys, right? But it's very difficult to maintain, there is no standard across the board at all. And so we constantly have to make sure that we're giving the correct information and that we're invoicing correctly and that we're not missing that mileage and we're not missing the ancillary fees. And, some clients pay them and some clients don't.
Yeah, and standardizing this is a big part of harnessing the technology that we talked about this morning. We'll never be able to really maximize what those technologies have to offer if there are dozens of variations of this type of thing. So I asked her to bring this really just for illustration purposes. There's like 100 pages in here, and this doesn't even get into variations in forms and all of that. Probably not a good idea for us to circulate this around. There's some proprietary information in here. Some of your pricing schedules is in here. So really just for illustration purposes. So, what are the things that you're having to do that you don't think are really adding any value from a compliance standpoint or a recovery result standpoint? What are we asking of you is just sort of compounding the pressure and really not adding anything to the process.
I'll start with that one. So I'll go back to the beginning session where we really kind of focused on updates, right? So just to give you some numbers, our company covers about 30% of Pennsylvania, maybe a little higher. So in the last 48 hours, our camera cars, LPR cars, have run like 1,300 addresses. About 10% we've discounted, and we've recovered just over 12% after those addresses, right? So think about it. So we sent you 1,300 addresses in the last 48 hours. I wonder how many were really read. So we may have sent you 6 or 7 actionable addresses. We discounted 90 addresses, so those are ones we really want you to look at. But when we sent you that many, and only 90 we really want you to look at and focus on and help us with, what's the odds that those 90 are getting to you?
Low.
Very.
How about you, Bree? What are we asking of you that?
He stole my answer. Different tiers of work, right? So kind of like we talked about earlier, we're receiving, like I'll receive an order from a direct client. I'll receive that same order from a forwarder later after they've closed it with me. And so it's like we're doing our job twice, basically. And different tiers of work are very difficult. First tier, obviously great. We're more likely to recover that unit for you. But by the time, I actually had another agency owner call me the other day, and she said, would you believe I got a 6-tier order? That means that how many hands has that order exchanged at this point? So, it's very, very difficult to assess if we're going to be able to, or the likelihood that we're going to be able to recover that unit. So the tiers of work are really important, and that's kind of why we're relying on you guys when we discount those orders and whatnot and sending them back to you, because we do need that extra assistance. So, like skip tracing that we talked about earlier, it's really important. It really, really is, and on our side and your side.
Mike, this would probably be a good one. Well, I'd like to hear from both you and Bryanna on it, but I know that IRS has a very specific way it evaluates profitability of clients, whether it be a forwarder or a lender. It's a method that you guys have been preaching in the marketplace for a while. Why don't you just explain the basics of it?
So we go pretty deep into our measuring profitability. The easy way is, what revenue do you get for each car you recover? That's dead simple. But so we dig a lot deeper. Our technology has allowed us to go to the point where we know how much revenue we get for every assignment we accept, whether we recover the car or not. And we base that not only on the lien holder, we also base that on the client, and sometimes as well as like the forwarder down to the lien holder level. So which forwarder performs best per each lien holder. So we judge that. We judge days to pay. That's important to us. We judge recovery rates and average days to recover. So we dig very deep into that system so we can understand where our clients are falling short, right? So we know where we have to focus harder to bring that profitability up.
Yeah, it's, it started with IRS, but we're starting to see it with others where, we're used to getting scorecards from you, our clients. Our agents, in many cases, are used to getting scorecards from us to them on their performance. What we're not used to is our agents sending us scorecards on, our performance with them, and we're seeing more and more of that. And the approach that many are starting to take, and it speaks to some of the, the issues that we've been talking about. They're looking at revenue per assignment, and that metric really is very holistic. So it's looking at not only the repossession fee, the repossession rate on that portfolio, key revenue, personal property revenue, any other ancillary revenue, storage revenue. And so that's the overall sort of metric that's starting to be applied. And the problem that we're seeing in the marketplace is that, you've got the repossession rate, which is the biggest piece of it, at least from an absolute dollar standpoint. That hasn't moved in years. But now the other pieces are starting to get chipped away. Whereas in reality, the agents are looking at the whole picture. So, if you pull out a piece, it's not getting replaced somewhere else. And so, again, this will become more and more relevant, again, as the economy softens, as agencies consolidate, others go out of business, there's fewer left. The ones that are going to be left, they understand this equation very well, and we're going to have to manage to it. And the solution is not going to be that, okay, we focused on personal property this year. Next year we're focusing on keys. How are we going to bring that down? Because we've got to look at the whole picture, or the problems that we've been seeing over the past few years, they're going to continue. You guys look at profitability differently?
No, we're pretty much right there with IR.
Les, what's the industry doing to help agents better understand this issue?
I think we're trying to my world, I said it earlier, most of us are born into it, we came into it, we didn't come as business people. So the education process, I will tell you that Jeremy Cross has been a leader and speaker to our industry to help these people understand that number. It really is an all-in number. I think if you stopped and look at it, it doesn't matter if this fee's paid or that fee's paid or that fee's paid. It's an all-in number. And the all-in number should be X. Not X minus 7, not X minus 8 or whatever. It should be X. That should be a number that you as a company should be able to evaluate easily. These people as business owners should be able to evaluate easily. And in today's environment, we can't. So we're working right now on ways to do that. Better bring that kind of quality information to people and share it through formats like this, Mike. Again, this is where we get these opportunities where we can have this exchange of ideas and information.
So what are your thoughts on what is a reasonable fee to be able to charge for storage of personal property?
I think we've beat this horse to death like 100 times, right? So the thing with me is any fee is better than no fee because it is zero profitability for us at this point almost. And personal property is disgusting most of the time, more often than not. I actually brought you guys something, and I'll pull that out in a second. But personal property for us, we have to employ people. We're repoing like 500 to 600 cars a month. So we're cleaning out every single car. We have 2 huge shipping storage containers that we actually air conditioned that are almost completely full all the time. And, we're employing 2 people full-time to just clean out vehicles. It's a huge burden of expense for us. And it's also I know that you guys have probably discussed with your agents and amongst yourselves the danger of repossessions in the field. There's a second danger that maybe has never been brought to your attention, is cleaning out those vehicles. Because would you want to stick your hand in the seat of some car where there was, white powder all over the seat, and you don't know if that's fentanyl or if it's flour, and, you get stuck by a needle and you get HIV? Guess who has to pay those medical bills? Us. And it is the second danger that nobody really discusses, and it's present every single day for our guys out there. And it's probably the lowest tier of pay in our company because there is zero profitability, right? But they're out there in the heat every single day. I don't know, where all of you are from, but we're from Houston, like I said, and sometimes the heat index is like 120, 134, and they're out there cleaning out cars all day, and we've provided them, fans and misting systems and, taken out of our own pocket these expenses to make it a little bit easier for them. But every single day, they're probably some of the hardest working people in our company, but we have the highest turnover there because it's such a difficult job, and it is so low paying because we're not receiving any income from that, basically.
What do you think is a reasonable fee?
I mean, $50 to $75 per car, easy, at least.
How about you, Mike?
Huh?
So
Mike.
Brianna, when we saw this question come out, Brianna put a post out, kind of a poll of our little group. So as owners, we have, friends all over the place where we poll each other and we share information and we try to, try to just keep everybody doing better. So she puts her poll out and it's all over the place. But realistically, that $75 to $100 range is where it fell mostly. And back to Brianna's point, we don't really care what it is. If you want to set it. We'd love it to be billed back to you because that's less interaction with an angry client. Because if he comes here and now he has to pay us $75, okay, he's a little bit more upset. But if we're billing back to you, that's a little bit less of a challenge, and it makes him a little happier.
Can I?
You have a thought on this?
Yeah, look, first of all, many states, the laws are written as such that there is an expectation from your customer that their property is secured, taken care of, and protected. There's that expectation in Texas. It even says in the law that you should charge for that. You have a right to, and it's an understanding. I think where we went off the reservation, the relationship, those of you who raised your hand and said, look, you can charge what you want. I think the problem was when people were holding personal property for payment instead of giving it back. And I think that somewhere it's in the middle. If you as a lender said, look, all right, that's a problem you've got, you deal with it, you're allowed to charge the lender per the CFPB. I mean, charge the customer. But if that customer can't pay you for it, we ask you to give it back. Just give it back, we'll work that out. And I will tell you that if, as business people, if we had done that 5 years ago, we wouldn't be in the position we're in today, because we would have been in communication with you and said, look, guys, we're gonna eat this one, this $75 or whatever it is. We'll eat one out of 20. And all of my years, you know, whenever I charged for personal property, I probably had 5 people that couldn't afford it or couldn't do it, or medical reason or whatever, we just gave it back. The numbers are so small. Those people, when they come on your lot, the expectation is you've taken care of their property. You've done something fantastic for them at the worst time in their life when they've lost their car. And somebody has treated them nice. Most of these people are taking care of this stuff, this junk, and presenting it back to them. Listen, I've had Bibles with lifelong things in them give back to people. And they were glad to pay me for them. So I think somewhere in the future, that's a direction we should go back and look at again and say, look, CFPB doesn't want you holding it. I get it. We shouldn't have held it. No one should have ever held a piece of property from a consumer that could not pay for it. Our industry made the mistake. So that's all I've got to say. I think there's a way to readdress this in fairness to every single lender and consumer in the country that can be managed.
A question for the audience. What gives you heartburn about the agency community? You saw tonight, Paul?
On the post-repo process, the transportation, a lot of our agents have limited transport times for my transporter to go there to pick up the car. They can go on the Tuesday and Thursday between 12 and 1 to pick up transport. That's a very difficult, short window to get my 10-car hauler there to transport my car. Do you guys limit your transport times?
Somewhat. So again, we have to have the right personnel there, but that is one of the extreme cases, right? So we are 12 to 4, Monday through Friday. And we have some transporters that come every day. They're in and out. They're not going to, they're not going to take up the lot for 15, 20 minutes, maybe sometimes up to a half hour. So we can make exceptions to that rule. But giving them a 4-hour window every day and not limiting their days, we pretty much leave it wide open. They can auto-schedule on our system. So they can just jump on our system and say, I want these 6 cars and I'd like to be there at 3:30. Boom, you're going to get we understand, right? So we can schedule ahead of time and have the right personnel move to that specific job that day.
Yeah. IRS is a big agency, so they've got personnel, but it is a challenge. A lot of these agencies are smaller and they don't have the personnel. The personnel they have are out in the trucks during the day.
I said there's a couple of them that throw the full moon on that Tuesday too sometimes.
Absolutely. Anybody else? I'm sorry, somebody else had raised their hand. Yes, right.
Obviously, I'm not a lien holder, but if I were, especially a subprime lien holder, my concern might be that you're using your own analytics to determine where the profitability is in a certain, run area on my accounts. So my concern, if I were, especially a subprime lender, would be that there's not as much profitability built in for my cars, and now that there's routing software that can take in inputs and analyze routes based off of the stuff, things that
Good question.
That's why updates are so.
Everybody hear that question? Everybody hear that?
So that's a great question. And I could tell you though, but if there's a client that we have that we're running at that level where it's not profitable to us to run our system, then we just don't have that client anymore. We want to perform. We want to perform. We care about profit. right? Because that's what keeps us alive and everything, but we want to be the best. And this is a lot of type A personalities, and we're competitive as crap, so we want to be the best. So if we can't perform to the levels with a certain client, then it's just a client that has to go to a company that can perform for them.
So, any agency or forwarder who understands profitability, they absolutely are making those decisions. And if they tell you they're not, they're lying. You have no choice. You can't run a business without it. So where it's not being done, it's with the agencies or maybe even forwarders who don't really understand client-level profitability yet and don't have the tools to make that and the analytics to make those decisions. But that group is shrinking, and the industry as a whole is getting a much better handle on client-level profitability, and resources are allocated accordingly. But
So I know there's been a lot of discussion about inconsistencies among lenders. As a lender, I have no idea what other lenders use, obviously. But now that we've gone to more of using boarding agents, they would be the ones that probably know what each lender uses. So I'm curious, now that we're using, or a lot of companies are using boarding agents, do you find that that's helping you to become more efficient, or is that becoming more difficult as an agent?
I'm glad you'll get to answer that one.
and remember who's sponsoring.
I appreciate being here. I have nothing to say.
The short answer is no. Forwarders make it a little bit more difficult sometimes because there is a disconnect there. And like I said, we have a certain set of standards from our direct clients, and we take some orders through forwarders that we work for also our direct clients. And there isn't even a standard across the board there. Like, we'll have different forms or different, billables or, things that we have to do for the forwarder versus our direct client. So things do kind of get lost in translation there. And no, it is very difficult to keep up with, and that's why we have to have a book like this. So, it's just a tough
Well, I
question.
think we as forwarders have got to take some responsibility.
No, it's really a good question, but really the answer is no.
I think there's an opportunity for forwarding agents because, we might be willing to change a form that we're asked. It's just we've never been asked, or we don't know what everyone else is using.
Well-
So I think it's an opportunity for the forwarding agents to help you be more efficient by reaching out and offering, a standardized form for all lenders, and maybe it can be a free.
You're absolutely right. And I think that, we, as the forwarding industry, needs to take responsibility. And there's actually work being done on that now. For the first time, the forwarders are working together to bring standards that will.
Make it a little less hard.
Yeah, this is awesome, and this is kind of why we're here, and why we appreciate ALS so much is because they really took that first step to, do the agent outreach and ask us what we need to be, more efficient and a better agency, even working with forwarders. So, like, the fact that you said you'd even be willing to listen is awesome, and that's the first step, and we do need to get there. And I think that's kind of why we were invited here as agents, to your lender event, and we do appreciate it, because that is really where we can bridge that gap.
We're running short on time. Final question, what's coming down the pike? What's starting to bubble out there that we may not really fully understand yet and need to be aware of?
I think for us, it's, the time frame we've been working in to prepare for this. Over the last 7 days, I've taken more calls about employee hiring and retention than I ever have, period. When you consider that we are taking one of the most invasive acts in the United States of America without a court order, and we don't have the resources to hire the people that should have the qualification for this job, it's going to be a nightmare for us. You guys as company owners may have a better handle, but I'm telling you, it's been, Mike, just since we've been in the last week, what are we going to do? We did a big release day on a job board out of our association to try to help these people, because we're at a point now where this is going to be maybe the next horizon of an issue to face. So from this perspective, we've covered most of it today. Thank you. But I think the employee retention is one that is going to be really a problem.
There are a couple of other issues that have come up lately I wanted to ask you about. One, and this actually just came up in the last week. We got notice from, I don't know, Bree, it might have been you that sent it, but the insurance, one of the big insurers has taken the position on auction takebacks.
Yes.
You know, where you've sent a car to auction, now the customer wants to redeem it for whatever reason, you want it brought back to the agent's lot for the redemption process to take place, that the insurer is no longer willing to insure that, essentially that transport, unless it's pursuant to a repossession order, right?
Well, once that leaves our lot, our chain of custody has ended. I no longer have any rights to that vehicle. So if you ask me to go pick it up again from auction 2-3 weeks later, my insurance doesn't cover it. So if something happens to that vehicle on the way back, or, you know, I have to face an erroneous or, you know, a claim that maybe even the auction caused that we didn't, that's something that's going to come out of my pocket. So we've actually kind of taken a stance on that and said, no, like, we're not going to do it unless you send us a vol order for it, because I need to reinitiate that chain of custody at that point. Because once that paperwork is signed and that vehicle leaves my lot, I'm not covered anymore. That unit is not covered under my insurance.
So it's really not, I mean, you don't really have much choice. If they're not going to cover it, you really can't.
But we've been
Transport.
demanded to do it by, you know, some clients. And it's a very frustrating situation to be kind of pushed into, because we want to service our clients. We want to do the best job, right? Like, if we're not doing what you guys are asking us to do, if we're not picking up those units, we're not making money. We're contingent, right? So we want to make you happy. But I'm also not going to risk my business or a lawsuit or a huge insurance claim. You know, a $20,000 car could very well raise my insurance tens of thousands of dollars the next year upon renewal. So it's just not worth the risk.
Well, I think it was a gray area until recently, but it's not gray anymore. The insurer's taken a position on it. So just, you know, something you've got to keep in mind if you, because there does seem to be a trend, I'm not sure what's behind this, but there does seem to be a trend towards returning cars that have been transferred to auction back to the agent's lot for redemption. We're seeing more than that than we have in the past. Whereas in the, you know, in the past, if it made it to the auction, the customer popped up and said, I want it back, the redemption took place at the auction. That's not happening now.
Are the lenders telling you why they will not allow for it to be redeemed from auction?
It might, I think maybe, okay, this is what I was told the other day. It's got to do with disparate claims from debtors. There's a major, my understanding is, there's a major lender just lost several lawsuits because these cars are being transported all over the country whenever they come back. There's some places where they're going, like, maybe they'll come from Dallas, or they were repoed in Tyler, and they come to Dallas Auto Auction. What the claim is from the lawyers is that now, in their state, I read, like, Pennsylvania is very clearly written, California is clearly written, that your debtor has the right to recover the property in the area where it was taken from. And what's happened is these lawyers are saying, oh, well, you're making this debtor A from Tyler drive all the way to Dallas to get their car back, and going to Tyler from the repo agent to pick the property up. That's not fair. So that's my understanding, is that these lenders are now facing these lawsuits over disparate treatment of the debtor. And we got to researching it and found clearly in some of these state laws that it says that it's written into the state law that says they have a right to redeem in the area or where they were or where it's presented from. I think Pennsylvania even says
Yeah.
they could tell you where to take it to.
They can almost tell us where to take it.
Yeah, I mean, so that's what's happened. Lawyers have found out that this is a way to charge that claim, and lenders are now facing those issues in court, and they've lost enough that they just said, look, all right, look, the answer is get them back to the repossession lots. We just have to address this take-back issue and insurance issue because it's a problem for us. Yes,
Do you know if these vehicles were moved to auction before the sale date, or?
Almost always. So our legal sale date in Pennsylvania is 30 days, and we have no clients that leave them on our actual lot for 30 days. So they just have to sit somewhere. And to be clear, we are glad to provide any service that you ask for, right? As long as we can make a profit on it and we're covered. So our problem with this stuff coming back is our insurance company is taking a very public stand, and it's the largest insurance company in our market. He's taken a very public stand that, you know, if you're going to bring that car back to auction, you need a voluntary repossession order open back up. We need that open back up. We're more than welcome, we would more than welcome to provide any service required. We just need protected.
Final questions? Actually, I had one more, just got a couple minutes. I know there's an issue that's starting to bubble up with regard to e-brake technology.
Yeah.
What,
The challenge is the new cars have what's called e-brakes on them, and there is no way to predetermine if they have e-brakes on them from a VIN code or anything else. It's an option, and it's high-tech that's moving into lower-tech cars. These guys are actually latching onto the cars in a very safe manner. The way you're supposed to do it, and you get a couple hundred yards away, and these things lock up all four wheels. And you can't move them, and you can't unlock them, and you can't do anything except now in the middle of the night, call for help and try to get a flatbed in to get this thing picked up. And we don't want to start, that's a whole nother half an hour. Lenders and willingness to pay for the extra costs that are being incurred in recovering in today's automobiles is a nightmare. You know, you got to get how do you get pre-approved for an e-brake car that you don't know is an e-brake car until 2:30 in the morning? And now your option is to call a flatbed to help bail you out before you have a confrontation in the street, or you leave the car in the street. This is it's going to get worse, because the more these e-brakes come into the lower level cars, which is obviously where we see more of the repossessions. And until we can figure out how you can decode a VIN to tell when it has one, or look at it and see if it has one, until we get to that point, this is going to be a major issue that we really need your help in trying to figure out an answer to, because these people are paying a lot of money and risking their lives. I mean, these are literally, I've been told 200 yards, and they'll lock up. Can you imagine pull out somebody's driveway at 2:30 in the morning, and you're sitting 200 yards down the street in front of all the neighbors and everybody else? In Texas, they all own guns, so, you know, I'm sitting out in the middle of the street with a car locked up, okay?
and on that note, a positive note to end on.